So
And
yeah.
we're live.
Oh, hey, hi.
So we'll
I'm
stop the
glad you
Mandalorian
didn't start it.
spoilers now, just in case. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. We weren't talking about a different series.
No,
Sorry.
what? No, Star Trek. It's all Star
No.
Trek here.
hmm
Yeah,
It is.
absolutely. So, hey, everybody, welcome to our Unready Room discussion for the 8th episode of Season 3, The Sanctuary. I'm Dan Gunther, this is Brandy Jackala, and we're your hosts for this lovely evening of discussion of this latest episode. So welcome everyone who's joined us live in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, thank you everyone who's watching this later. Really do appreciate that as well. So Brandy, how are you? How are you this fine December evening?
You know, I'm doing all right. I've been spending a lot of quality time with my PlayStation 4 and playing Dead Rising 4 because it takes place during Christmas, and there's nothing quite so satisfying as whacking a zombie to death with some stuff that I made from Christmas presents and a star from the top of a tree. So I'm really having a good time just slaughtering zombies. It's very cathartic.
That's fun. For me, when I get in the Christmas spirit is when I'm decorating the Christmas tree and I hang that ornament that's the salt vampire sucking the stuff from Kirk's face. And you hit that button and you just hear him scream at the top of his lungs. Nothing says the holidays quite like that.
It is true. It is true. You know, it's not a new concept having a little horror in your holidays because the UK especially, they still carry on that tradition of ghosts for Christmas. In fact, I have an entire book of short stories called Ghosts for Christmas. A very thick book anthology. And it's in our Christmas carols too. You know, like it's the most wonderful time of the year. There'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glories of Christmases long, long ago.
Absolutely.
It's in there. It's in there.
We should have someone of German descent come on the show and tell us all about Krampus. That'll be.
Oh yes,
that's fun.
I have a friend who has the best Krampus cosplay ever. Like he is terrifying and wonderful at the same time. His name is Antonio, and he is brilliant.
That's awesome. Well, we are not here to talk about our holiday traditions. As much fun as that would be, I think that sounds fun. But we're here to talk about something equally fun, which is, of course, the latest episode of Discovery. So, The Sanctuary. I guess first of all, we get to see Book's homeworld. Kwejian, which is pretty cool. So it looks a lot like rural Ontario to me, but I'm digging it.
I that's pretty much what I said the minute they were on the planet. I said, "Oh, look, Ontario, another forest." Yeah, looks like Canada, which is fine. Canada has beautiful forests, so.
Yeah, I mean it's not much different than everywhere looking like somewhere in Southern California. So
Yeah. Well, trees are pretty much the same wherever you go. It's just the size of them and how old they are and all that sort of thing, and whether they have leaves on them, whether you digitally paint them blue or something like that. In the case of Seaweed Pack and Parabellum, it's just
absolutely.
Yeah.
Or whether or not there are little floaty sea locusts floating around.
Sea locusts, yes, very. They looked like kind of like tiny hot air balloons.
Yeah, a little bit
attached to a virus.
I was gonna say, yeah, like one of those. I forget the type of virus that's. I think it's a phage type virus. The ones that they look like the Baul ships as well from last season. Kind of similar idea there. And we also meet, of course, Book's brother of sorts, Kaihim, who is an interesting character. What did you think of Kaihim?
I'm
Bacteriophage. Thank you, TJ. Oh my God, we have the best
Thank you.
commenters ever.
We do. Thank you so much.
Love you guys. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Kahim. The first thing I thought was, oh, he's hot. That's literally the first thing I thought. I was like, who is this guy? But it wasn't just about that. I sensed he was a very angry person at the moment. So fair point.
I hear you.
Like all of that stuff filmed in Iceland must have really freaked you out.
Yeah. Speaking as someone who's on a current rewatch of Stargate and about halfway through season 10 of SG1, it's just like every alien planet looks like the BC interior, and I love it. I'm here for it. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, it's fine. I'm not complaining. So yeah, I thought, well, this may not go well at first. And he's probably doing some dumb things, and this is most definitely a trap. Those are all the things that I thought.
Yeah, definitely turns out to be a trap, set, of course, by the named a few times so far, and we finally get to see her, Osyraa, who's the head of the Emerald Chain. So Osyraa, I've been seeing, of course, a lot of jokes floating around on the internet comparing her to the Wicked Witch of the West. And I do have to say, after having that pointed out, I'm like, I see it. I definitely see it. So yeah, there's been mixed reaction to her. And I have thoughts, but I'm curious what your thoughts on Osyraa are.
I am bored by the Emerald Chain. I do not care. I don't think they're formidable as a baddie. I wish that Osyraa could figure out which accent she was planning on doing. And I'm pretty sure that was not her actual chin. So I think that was a prosthetic.
That seems
yeah.
Yeah. That seems to be a lot of people's consensus. I've been noticing a lot of people kind of not really digging the Emerald Chain. I'm a little bit on the other side. I'm curious to know more. This whole kind of revelation that they're running out of dilithium. I like the idea of like a cornered or a wounded animal kind of striking out or something.
The most dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm waiting for them to be a little bit more formidable, I guess. So they've been a little disappointing, but I'm still kind of like, I want them to be more. And I don't know, there's something about Osyraa that I enjoyed, and I think the way I put it in my video is like, she's got this earnestness to her, but like she's just nasty. Like, I don't know. Yeah. There's something about like, she'll just talk to you like this, and then whatever. I want a little bit more well-roundedness to her, though, because she's very one note at the moment.
She is. I will give her a chance, but they need to figure out where she's from, because she's talking normally, and then she's talking like she's Canadian, and then she's talking like she's trying to be British, and it's just, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Ooh, I need to watch that again because I didn't pick up on that.
Oh, I did. It was painful for me. I was so distracted by that I was unable to really focus on much else, because I'm just like, okay, now she's from England, apparently. I guess she's just from all around the galaxy.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to keep a closer eye on that. That's the one thing I did notice, is she seems to have been quarantined through COVID and therefore did her own bangs at some point.
Yeah, it's just like, ooh, maybe she likes it that way. Maybe she's one of those people that will not let anyone else touch her hair. I mean, she's not going to have anyone come near her with sharp objects if she can help it. So of course she's going to trim her own bangs. That makes sense to me.
Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I'm not being facetious here. I really mean that.
It makes sense. Yeah. Mossy makes a good comment here. I'm waiting for the other the Federation. They do keep giving these little hints that maybe not all is what it seems with the Federation. And maybe I'm reading too much into stuff, but we had the Vulcans and the Romulans last week through the president say, the SB-19 experiment was just kind of the last straw. Before that, there were a bunch of other reasons why we left. And then the one that I noticed in this episode was Rin. And we'll talk about Rin as well, because I freaking loved him this week. But that scene, that great scene where he bursts in on Saru's ready room and demands to speak with the captain. He has a line. He says, the Federation's help always comes with strings attached, until he's like, no, it doesn't. So what gave him that impression? Was it just the Emerald Chain propaganda, or is there some reason why he has that impression of the Federation? I thought that was interesting that, like, again, this week, second week in a row, there's kind of that hint there, which again, maybe I'm reading too much into, but I feel like there's something there.
Well, they're all speaking of the Federation of the past. They don't have a whole lot of knowledge of the Federation as it is right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm willing to allow a bit of leeway there and say, because I mean, Vance has already admitted that, what happened with SB-19, and also finding out that they were basically forcing Navarre to continue the project. And they thought that was, what led to the burn, etc. So, yeah, again, it was about desperation, because running out of dilithium and trying to find different ways of propulsion so that they could keep everything together. And instead that kind of tore them all apart. But a lot of these places haven't had contact with the Federation since the burn. So I kind of feel like been 120 years. So I'm not willing to believe that the Federation is just completely and totally out for itself now. It may have been back then, because the Federation does not have clean hands. And we know this from the beginning of Star Trek. No one has any illusions about that. But I am not also willing to believe that everything is as bad as everyone on the outside says it is.
Right. Yeah. And part of it might be that the Federation just isn't as widespread as it was. I'm thinking back to the second episode this season, where the Caridianites were like, we always thought you'd come. We weren't holding out hope. We were holding out hope that you would finally come. Maybe there's just, that's kind of spread around, that the Federation isn't there when people need them. Not through any kind of, bad behavior means words tonight. But rather just through inability to be able to, do all the things kind of thing.
Yeah. And I brought this point up in the episode of What the Future Holds we recorded earlier this week, and it looks like it's being brought up in the chat as well, that, remember how people reacted to Voyager starting roundabout in the second season, where they would meet with people and they're just like, oh, we've heard about you.
The ship of death.
You're terrible. Yeah. And it's just like, wait, what? So yeah, I'm just kind of, I feel like, yes, there's reason to think that things weren't all pristine and wonderful and everyone holding hands and singing Kumbaya, but I'm also not willing to believe that it is as bad as everyone makes it out to be.
Yeah.
That's where I stand. I'm sticking to it.
It makes sense. I feel
otherwise.
Yeah. I feel like at the most basic level, what it might be is like, some things that the Federation has done, like you say, in the past, will kind of come to light, and the Discovery crew will kind of have their like shocked moment. But, but that's not what we're like now. We're doing this now. And okay, all right, something like that. I feel like there's some kind of revelation coming.
Well, will Discovery really be so shocked? Because at the end of the Klingon War, when they found out what
That's true.
what Cornwell was willing to do, and they're just like, oh hell no. So I don't necessarily think that they're going to be shocked per se, disappointed. They're going to be like a disappointed parent going, we leave you alone for 930 years and this is what you do.
Yeah, or a little disillusioned maybe, or something
Yeah.
like that. But
Yeah,
interesting.
indeed.
So Rin, I want to talk about this guy. When he was first introduced a couple episodes ago, he, didn't make a huge impact, but I liked him. Like, oh, I'm glad he's around. I'm glad they've got something continuing with him. This episode, I feel like it really pays off. I feel like he is an incredibly well-rounded character. Like, I feel like I want to see the background notes on this character, like all the stuff they put in, because he feels more developed than most characters who just kind of appeared a couple episodes ago, for example. Like it feels like he's got a lot of backstory and a lot of really interesting stuff to mine, and of course played wonderfully by, of course, Mary Wiseman's husband, Noah Averbach-Katz, I think.
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, thanks. And
just call him Noah
also,
AK. He's fine with that.
Yeah. And also having a couple really great scenes opposite Mary Wiseman this week as well, which was fun.
I was so happy about that because I just thought, are they ever going to get scenes together? Come on, they have to. She's first officer now. He has to have scenes with her, please. I loved it. I loved every second he was on screen, and just, I just wanted to stay on Discovery forever. They need and they need an Andorian up in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be really cool if he ended up being like a recurring or a primary character next season or something. Please don't kill him off or get rid of him. Let's have him around somehow. I really enjoy him, yes. And I think pairing him with Detmer this time around was really interesting because of the kind of the issues that both of them are having. And I love that, like, Detmer gets to kind of model better self-confidence to Rin, and through that kind of regains some of her self-confidence and that she's lost because she's been kind of gun shy because of what she's gone through, with like at the last or a few weeks ago where that was a lot closer than it should have been. She's kind of questioning her own abilities. This episode, she really gets to show off those abilities and kind of realize that, like, I'm the strong one in this situation. I can take charge and do what needs to be done, not just rely on the fail safes and backups, but instead, nope, I'm going full manual. I'm, going to be all macho pilot again kind of thing. I love that whole exchange. That was really great.
And Rin clutching the cat the entire time.
That was terrific. What is this? What's that noise it's making? It's a cat.
It's a cat. What is that? A pet? Is it like a pet? Yes, but not Grudge. Grudge is not a pet.
No, Grudge is a queen.
She is a queen. She is the queen.
Absolutely. Yeah, that whole thing was terrific. I really enjoyed that. I feel like I would have liked to have seen Jonathan Frakes directing that scene, because I feel like he had a lot of fun with that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I love how she says to him, he's telling her about Osyraa and all these things, and she's in the experiences that he's had, and she says, well, I've definitely got the right co-pilot. And I'm just like, oh, my heart. Absolutely. So I really enjoyed the two of them together, and yeah, I enjoyed seeing Detmer get some of her groove back. And what I hope and what I believe will happen is, just because you face something that you fear, that doesn't mean you're not afraid anymore. It just means that you can fight through the fear. And so I hope they don't just make this a magic pill that Detmer is just now 100% fine. It's a step on the way to being better. But, like, for instance, I'm terrified of needles. Does that mean that I don't go get a flu shot? No, I go and get a flu shot and I cry for 15 minutes afterwards. But I face my fear. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be afraid again. It just means that I'm able to face my fear and do what I need to do.
Mm-hmm.
I know it's not the same thing. Okay. I know it's not the same thing. It's just the best example that I had.
We all have our battles. It's, that's, no, we all have our stuff, right? So
Yep.
no, that makes sense. Absolutely. And yeah, as Mark points out here, Detmer, and as you said, encouraging Rin, saying like you said, I have the right co-pilot and stuff. Rin kind of not having that self-confidence. I think it's also interesting that he gets that scene with Tilly where I can't remember exactly what he says, but like I'm basically says he's useless kind of thing. And Tilly is another person who I don't know that I'd say she's struggled with self-confidence issues, but she's questioned herself and wavered on that a few times in the past. And this posting as temporary first officer is another thing that's helped her kind of step into her own and realize that like I have value, I have a lot of worth that I can bring, and a lot of gifts that maybe aren't immediately apparent that I can bring to this role. And I think she plays a role in encouraging Rin as well, which I thought was an interesting pairing.
Yeah, I enjoyed that, and he confides in her about the whole dilithium thing.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't confide in anyone else, doesn't tell the captain, doesn't tell Detmer, doesn't tell any of the other people that he's met. No, he tells Tilly. Because Tilly is just, you feel that from Tilly. You're safe with Tilly. And the thing, that's another thing I really like about this episode is Tilly really coming into her own and proving that she can be a great first officer just already. Because that idea to, send out Bookship with Detmer, that was her idea. Unorthodox, yes, but Absolutely. It was the solution to their problem, so that technically Discovery wasn't firing on Osiris' ship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a really good Tilly as first officer moment. I'm looking forward to more of those. I want to see more like bridge action with Tilly in the first officer role, or leading an away team or something like that. A lot of the stuff in this episode, which I think is a part of the job and a step towards more responsibility as first officer, but there's a lot of kind of administrative stuff in this episode, which was good. But like, I want to see Tilly giving those orders on the bridge and like calling for red alert and, doing the Riker stuff, if that makes sense. But it's a lot of fun. One part that I loved that I see everybody talking about, of course, is Tilly helping Saru find his catchphrase, his "make it so," if you will.
Yeah. Actually, it's not so much "make it so" as it is "engage," because that's what Picard usually says when they're going to warp. Is he says "engage." Make it so can be used for multiple situations, like, hey, I have this idea, we should do this, and he'll say make it so. Doesn't necessarily have to do with going to warp. So he's really got two catchphrases.
No, for sure. But I point stands that I enjoyed Saru kind of trying to find that. And I don't know, we talked a little bit before we started recording. David had an idea. Do you have any other ideas? Like, let's help Saru out with this. Like, are there any good catchphrases you can think of?
No. I'm terrible at catchphrases. I really, really am. I got nothing. Nothing.
Okay.
Yeah. Dave said that he should just do proceed, because it's a very Saru thing to say, but
yeah.
And that's the thing, it's got to be something that fits the character. So
yeah. My favorite, and I mentioned this to you before we started as well, it's very situation specific. It's not one that can be used over and over, but my absolute favorite Saru in command moment was in season 2 episode New Eden, and his order was, "Run, Mr. Stamets." it was like how did he say? He's like, the radioactive debris will hit the planet's atmosphere in 2 minutes. And Stamets just stands there. Run, Mr. Stamets! And goes, oh, right. I love that.
Yes, that was a great moment.
I don't think
Great
Run,
moment.
Mr. Stamets is going to work every time, unless they're
No.
using the spore drive, I guess. But
they're not
No.
always using the spore drive. You know?
No, of course not.
Sometimes they're just not. But yeah.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, we know from season 1 as well, and I'm going to keep talking about this because it's fun. We know from season 1 that Saru likes to look to past captains and kind of compare himself to them, right? We see when he's comparing himself to the 5 most decorated captains in history kind of thing at the time. So I'm wondering if now that he's so far in the future, is he looking up past famous captains? And it's like, there's like a week he's gonna like take on all of Picard's mannerisms and order tea Earl Grey hot and you know, and then another week he's gonna do everything Cisco. He's gonna have Raktiginos and Jambalaya and you know.
Yeah, well, but at the end of that episode, when the computer was about to give him his evaluation results, he's just like, "No, I don't need that. I don't need to compare myself to anybody else." So.
That's true. Yeah.
So yeah.
Maybe he'll have a little cup of tea like Sulu. I don't know.
I have that teacup behind me.
Oh, I'm jealous. That's really cool. Did you get the Enterprise or the Excelsior?
Both.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I can't have one without the other.
Absolutely. Okay, so what do we want to talk about now? What do you want to talk about now? I have a few other things, but I'm going to let you lead for a little bit here.
Okay, things. All right, yeah. Well, there's something. I'm sure that you were planning on bringing this up, but I'm ready to talk about Adira coming out.
Okay, that was my next one on my list, but
okay. I am ready for that and there for it, and it made me super emotional when it happened. So 8 for 8 for crying, guys. So yeah, it's just you know, Stamets volunteering Adira to, you know, create this algorithm, and he says and it could be interpreted that she's upset that he's volunteering her. Excuse me. They're upset that he's volunteering them, but at that point we don't really know what it's about. And after, you know, Saru leaves, she reveals she's not a she. She's a they. She never felt like a she. So it's they now. They, them, their, etc. And the look on Stamets' face of this like contained joy that she would trust him with this was just so because
she does have this way.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's just she's never told no one else knew before this except for Gray, which proves that they were non-binary before the symbiont. So it's not about the symbiont.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Which I think needed to be clarified, and I'm glad they did that. I'm so proud that they did that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So they, you know, and all that Stamets says is, okay. And from that point on, it's they, they're, them.
Yep.
And
I love that.
Everybody else is doing that too. He kind of just spreads the word and says the pronouns are they and them there. So that's, and Adira, they are, well, Blue, they are magnificent at tired acting. That is someone who knows what it is like to be absolutely bone tired, slumped over a desk or a station or what have you, just waiting for something to finish. And just the way that they acted when, you know, Stamets and Culber are talking in the background and they're talking, and Stamets is talking about, you know, they're exhausted, they did this and this and this, and now they're waiting for this algorithm to finish, and they say they are awake. sits up and just, I was like, I felt that. I
Mhm.
felt that exhaustion.
Yeah.
So, way to go, Blue. You are killing it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
people are looking at Stamets and Culber kind of like parents, and I get that, but I feel it's more of a friendly thing rather than an authoritarian figure thing.
Mhm.
And so I feel like it's more like brothers than parents. But either way works. Both opinions are valid. I just love that they're just so in love with Adira. Not in a romantic way, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. TJ has a comment here. I just want to highlight before I kind of talk what I'm thinking. Blue is an unbelievably natural actor. There's one moment in a previous episode that I absolutely felt this, and it's just such a small, minor moment, but at the symbiont pools, before they go into the pool, they get they come out wearing that white, and the
Her
way,
baptism dress, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and the way they look down, and Adira says, "Not exactly my style," or something like that. I was just like, I believe, like, I felt that that was the actor saying that, like, but not as an actor, like as like the character. They just totally inhabited that character in that moment, and absolutely bought. Like, it's such a minor line, but I absolutely believed I was looking at a real person and not somebody playing a character. If that makes sense, it was just,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the weirdest minor moment, but that just totally.
No,
I was like, whoa.
I agree with that. And also from that episode, the way they are before they get sucked down into the pool and after they have been brought back out of the pool, and the way that it's even physical, just physically, facial expression, just the way they move, etc. You know that they are in touch with every one of those hosts now and the symbiont. And that, oh wow, just with
Mhm.
no words whatsoever, communicating that is masterful for someone that age.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And so, going to this episode specifically, that whole scene, I absolutely loved it. And like you were saying about Stamets, he does this thing with his eyes when he gets a little squinty, but
Because he's
like,
trying not to cry.
yeah, but also I noticed that he does that when he's like got all his attention on something. Like, there's a
Mm.
lot of times where the characters, doing whatever, and then something, and he's like, now he's like noticing that, and so he gave Adira all of his attention, and in that moment was just so completely present, and the like, okay, it was perfect. And like a few episodes ago, when there were interviews and they talked about the pronouns and referring to them as she at the time and stuff, and how this was going to play out later, it happened exactly the way I thought it would, that it would just be actually blah blah blah. Oh, okay, no problem. And then it switches from then on, and no big deal is made of it. There's no like, oh, that's strange, could you explain that? Like, nothing. It's just absolutely the way it should be. And I've seen some people saying there should have been even less of a deal made of it because of when it takes place. And I kind of get that. I kind of get that, yeah, in hundreds of years, hopefully, like, there would be even less of a deal made with it. They just, oh, it's they, them. Oh, okay, sorry. You know, but it's a television show made for the 21st century, and we need this because we need to be modeled how to talk to people and how to accept people, and not make a huge hairy deal about what somebody wants to be called because it offends our sensibilities somehow, which I don't get, but whatever. I love that they just model exactly how that conversation should go now.
Mm-hmm.
My
Well,
soapbox.
and no, I completely 100% agree with you. it is disrespectful to not call people by the pronouns that they want to be called.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't think about that in their daily lives because most of us, our chosen gender identity is obvious. But finding out what pronouns people prefer it should be just a commonality now. It
Mm-hmm.
should just be, and that's why in my Twitter profile, I have she, her. Everybody knows up front I identify as female, and there are no faux pas. I mean, what if I went around calling a man who is obviously a man, who identifies as a man, preferred pronouns are he, him, and just refused to call him by his pronouns? It is that level of offensive to not call. If someone wants to be called they, them, then that's what you call them. Why is that a problem?
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to bring out the dreaded P word that so many people hate, privilege,
Do it.
because I look the way I look and you look the way you look. We don't have a problem because the assumption is correct.
Yep.
And that's not the case for everybody, and just because like, well, I don't have a problem with blah, 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 because nobody's ever called you the wrong thing because, you have a 4-inch long beard. Like it's, and even if you did and wanted to go by something else, that would be your right to be able to make that clear. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Anyway.
And once again, this journey of Adira is mirroring Blue's journey of figuring out what they want to be called, because they were not out as non-binary when they were cast. So at least they weren't out to their parents and most of the people who knew them. So it has that extra layer of realism to it because of that, because the actor is going through a very similar journey as the character, which makes their performance even more impressive. Just layers upon layers of being super impressive. Yes.
Absolutely. I want to pop back to a comment that Marg made because I hadn't really thought of this. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts, because I kind of forgot that was an aspect as well, that Gray is no longer appearing to Adira. Do you have any thoughts on that as to why that might be, or what that's about?
I think Stamets has part of the answer, and he says that to Adira when he's in their quarters and they're playing the cello. And well, I think it's their quarters, and there's a piano there. Oh wow, somebody playing piano and playing cello, and I'm just like, I didn't know you played piano, and I love this so much. But besides that, they say, well, maybe Stamets says maybe he thinks he's doing what's best for you, and that upsets them because they're like, I get to choose what's best for me, which is true. So I think that may be part of it. I think that Gray may be silent because they want to push Adira out into the world more. I don't know. That story has not finished. So
Absolutely.
I think that the most visible answer to me is that he's doing it so that they will get out there and have to interact with other people because he's not there to talk to.
Yeah. And added to that, maybe kind of recognizing that it's a very confusing time for Adira, and maybe he felt he wasn't helping, if that makes sense, or is helping in a different way now, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. Yeah.
I believe we'll find out, but that's the feeling I get right now for Adira not being able to, because they say they can feel him, but he's not talking.
Yeah, he's there, but just not not interacting. That's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I do need to watch it again. This is one of the rare times I've only watched it the one time. So a lot of that stuff is the stuff I would make notes about the second time. So interesting. Beaverious. I've never actually said it out loud. Now I'm like, how do I say that? I just love this comment. So it's at moments like this in the show that younger viewers now will look back on and realize how Trek influenced their worldview. Absolutely, because I have so many things like that from my life, from like TNG and Deep Space Nine and that sort of thing. And like I was a young teenager during Deep Space Nine, so a lot of that was I didn't realize at the time how formative it was. I remember, like, this is going to sound like I'm making this up or being disingenuous, but this is actually how I felt at the time. I remember watching the episode Rejoined, and it was like the second or third or fourth time I'd seen it, something, because I taped them on VHS and I'd, rewatch episodes and stuff. It was probably a couple years after it first aired. And I remember thinking the moment when Dax and Khan are just about to kiss and they're so hesitant, and they go and they pull back, they go and they kiss. And I was like, why is this such a big deal? Why is this such a big, oh God, it's two women. Right. Like, I know that sounds like I'm making that up, but like for a moment, I forgot what a big deal on television that was at the time. Like, it was just two people kissing, and I mean, I know in the show it's a big deal, but you can tell when the big deal of things outside of a show too, right? So like, why is this filmed this way? Why does this seem such a odd, right? I just forgot for a moment. And I love that I had that reaction, like reflecting on it later. I was so happy that I had that reaction, because it was like, it's normal. It's not anything out of the ordinary. And you wish everybody could feel that way. And now, of course, we're further on. There are more barriers to be broken. And there are a few things that, as an older person, I have to remind myself, nope, that's normal. And I need to learn things. Everybody needs to learn things. And I love that young people nowadays will be watching that scene and going like, what's the big deal? Why are they even having this conversation? That's not a big, like, what's that about? I love it.
Yeah. I mean, there are some firsts in this series in general that honestly shouldn't have been firsts this far in the future. These should have been firsts about 20 years ago, but we are talking about the P word again. We privileged people are so comfortable with the status quo that when anything comes in to stir up any kind of, just even the scent of a bias against a certain group of people, we just fly off the handle. And I am so tired of that. I'm so tired of that. We're all people. We're all the same under our skin. And if somebody wants to identify as a female or a male, why does that hurt you somehow? Answer, it doesn't. So shut your mouth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't get it. Yeah. I feel like I could talk about this all night, and
we could.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I do want to mention with regards to identity, and just kind of linking it back into the episode, is this episode has some interesting things to do with identity and what people want to be called. Not just in Adira, but also in Book, who went by a different name before, and a couple times tells his brother, no, my name's Book now, call me Book. And there's just an interesting parallel there that I'm, obviously the writers have some thoughts that they want to talk about with regards to identity and how we see ourselves and that sort of thing. I'm not sure exactly what my conclusion about all of that is, but it's just interesting that this is happening at the same time. And then, of course, linking back again, making me think of Calypso with Kraft, who never did give his true name and said, if you were my lover, you would give me my true name. Kraft isn't his true name, and he even gives a different name at the start of the episode. I can't remember what it is, but
I can't either.
Something else. I need to watch that again for other reasons, which we'll get to. But yeah, I feel like there's some interesting things, and I don't know if there's any kind of relationship or relation between Kraft and where he's from and Book and where he's from, and if there's any kind of cross pollination of cultures there or something, but it feels like there's something to do with identity and names and people giving names and getting names for some reason that, and again, we're teased. There's a story behind that name that we don't get yet as well, which I want.
Well, I just remember what Book said in the first episode about how he was from a family of poachers and killers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm guessing that was the name he was given when he was born into that family.
That makes sense.
And when he left them, he chose his own name because he didn't want to be associated with the poaching and the killing.
Mm-hmm.
And instead used his gift to save creatures that were on the brink of extinction. So that's what I took from that, why he wanted to so vehemently not be called by his, I'm going to guess, birth name.
Mm-hmm. This is maybe going way too far out on a limb, but he said, like, there's a story behind the name, he says, and he hasn't told Burnham yet. Burnham doesn't know the story yet.
Mm.
I'm wondering if he had a lover who gave him his true name or something, if that's, I'm wondering if there's something there, and if there's somebody still out there or somebody who's no longer out there for some reason or something like that. That's interesting. Again, a lot of assumptions, going way out on a limb, assuming there's some kind of connection between these two stories. There may not be, but just an errant thought that I had there. So,
Well, if there is someone who gave him his name, she's definitely not pining over them, because I don't feel like Book's the kind of guy that would start up a relationship with another woman when he was still attached to someone else. Mm-hmm. So they either broke up or she's not around anymore.
Yeah.
Assuming it was a she. I don't even know that it was a she.
Yeah. Or
I'm making an assumption.
Or Star Trek tackles polyamory.
Yeah. Andorians.
Yes. I just saw this as I was looking away. There it is.
I love it. Yeah. That's going to be my headcanon.
I love it. Yep, absolutely. Okay, so other little bits that are kind of in this episode. We've got the whole thing with Georgiou, which I think we get like a taste of this episode without giving spoilers away for stuff I've seen or people maybe haven't seen. I feel like in the next episode, they're going to kind of run full bore with that. So we'll not comment too much on that, other than to say it looks like, I'm trying to remember what's in this episode and what's in the other thing. It looks like there's something wrong. This scan has revealed something that's very definitely wrong with Georgiou, and she is unsettled by it, let's say. So that's interesting. And then the other thing in this episode, the origin of the burn. We learn the location where it originated, which seems to be this nebula, which is also where this music is coming from. And apparently the music is actually a distress call from a Federation ship that is in the nebula. Does this make you think of anything from any other episodes of something in the past?
Excuse me. I keep hitting my pop filter. As I have seen the next episode, I cannot comment on any of these events at this time.
Okay. Well, here's what I'll say is, of course, the Short Treks episode Calypso, which has come up like 5 or 6 times now this season. The Discovery was in a nebula for almost 1,000 years. I don't know. I feel like there's a connection. I don't want any kind of what's the word? Wow, my words tonight are horrible. I don't want any kind of confirmation one way or the other on that. So that's just, I'm putting that out in the ether as kind of a theory or
honestly,
a thought.
I may have spouted the same theory, but I can neither confirm nor deny that theory is going to be proven correct.
Okay.
So
right.
I can't. I know part of the answer, and I cannot speak on it.
Fair enough. And I would ask you to not. So, I'm just excited. Okay. What else? Oh, the other thing out of this episode that I wanted to talk about, Book's decision at the end of the episode. So after watching this episode, just because of where I am in making videos and stuff, I had rewatched Unification 3, and I forgot in that episode the kind of end of it where Burnham decides she's staying on Discovery. That's where she's going to be. I kind of forgot that they had this conversation, Burnham and Book, where she says, "What does that mean for you?" And Book says, "I honestly don't know." And I kind of forgot about that. And then in this episode, Book, having seen what the Discovery can do and what the crew is capable of, both like actually physically capable of and like emotionally, compassionately capable of, is like, I want to be a part of this. I'm sticking around. I want to be a part of what you're doing. And Burnham's like, well, you have to talk to Saru about that. But it looks like he's sticking around, which I thought was a really, really cool decision.
Mm-hmm. I was actually expecting this because he said to Michael that she felt like home. He wasn't going to leave anytime soon. So I was expecting at some point he's going to see what they're doing. He's going to understand. He's spending a lot more time on this ship with this crew, and he's finally getting it. I honestly didn't think it was going to happen this quickly, but I did think it would happen. So I was very excited. And especially with Michael telling, well, you're just going to have to go talk to Captain Saru about your intentions. Almost as if he had asked for her hand in marriage. And she was like, you've got to talk to my dad first.
I like that. Yeah. And I like that. Yeah. And I like kind of like how you said, he's not just sticking around, he's making a commitment, which I think is really cool. And that was a really nice moment for sure.
Yeah.
So that's all that I have from my kind of quick jotted notes. Is there anything that that you want to talk about that I haven't spoken about? I guess we could talk about the whole solution to the sea locust issue. And we didn't really talk about that, which is kind of like the main problem in the episode, I guess, besides Asira.
Yeah.
It worked. So, that's good. They got rid of them.
It's basically a Book admonishing them for just, letting Asira in the first place, and now wanting to just trade people's lives so that they can have this cure or repellent or what have you to keep the sea locusts out. And so it's a pretty standard thing of family politics going on there. And Kahim really wants to just blame Book for everything. And the thing is, Book leaving didn't have anything to do with your decisions, buddy. So if you want to know why everything that's happening is happening, go look in a mirror. But see, that's the thing that angry people do. They project onto other people. So usually when someone is shouting at you about something that honestly is absolutely not true about you, they're actually shouting about themselves. So they just don't have the self-awareness to realize that.
No.
So, but in the end, he wouldn't give Book up.
That's true. Yeah. He came around. I liked I liked Burnham's kind of interaction with his kid too. That was kind of cute. At the
I
end.
loved that. That's why I have my middle name is Ew Fun. That little boy was adorable.
Oh, he's gonna go pick the skin off of Linus's face. It's so cute.
Yeah, very cute.
Yeah. Any final thoughts and a rating? And this goes for folks in the comments as well. Ratings that you want to give out, I'll throw up on the screen as we go as well.
There were some really important things that happened in this episode that honestly should be just everyday things. And we're getting there. This is the first step, is planting this seed and having it be with, I mean, there's no metaphor going on here this time. It's a human being who is non-binary, and they're not non-binary because they happen to be carrying a symbiont. They were non-binary before that. So, human being. This is not an alien metaphor, nothing. So, I love that they did that with a human character, with someone who is obviously figuring themselves out at that age when you're starting to really understand who you are. It was super important for people to see. And yet there are still those idiots. They're like, oh, so she wants to be called them now? Yes, they want to be called them.
Mm-hmm.
And just like you would call someone by their given name, like if I come up to you and say, hi, my name is Brandy, you don't say, oh, hi, Karen. Come on, people. So, there were a lot of great moments in the episode. I do find the whole Emerald Chain stuff boring. Maybe I will change my mind down the road. Because honestly, there are things that I didn't like a lot at the time. And then with the context of later episodes and later seasons, I understood them better. So I'm not going to say this was a terrible episode. And I'm not going to say it was a great episode. It was a good episode. It had some really important things. And I feel the way I feel about it is the way that Stamets looks at Adira and says, okay.
I like it. Absolutely. And Marg, thank you so much. And you're very welcome. We love doing this. So thank you.
We do. We would do it without an audience, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is honestly, it's like once a week I get to talk to a good friend about Star Trek for an hour. And then there's a whole bunch of other really good friends in the chat who chime in as well, which is awesome. So I love it. So yeah.
I do too. And we're so glad we have all you guys in the chat. You're awesome and amazing.
Absolutely.
I can't even keep up with you guys because I will go down the rabbit. If I start looking at the chat, I will go down the rabbit hole and I will forget what I'm talking about. So forgive me for not always paying as much attention to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and me too. When I miss a lot of comments, absolutely. So apologies for that, but I try and get there as much as I can. So yeah, I enjoyed this episode. It wasn't my favorite of the season. It wasn't my least favorite of the season. It's kind of a middle season episode, I guess, for the most part. There are parts of it that I absolutely loved, and parts of it that I don't know. I was just kind of like just zoning out through a little bit. Mm-hmm. The whole ending, getting rid of the things, just a little bit of woo-woo to it that I'm like, but it's kind of par for the course for Star Trek. That's always been a part of Star Trek as well. It's just not my favorite part, but that's okay. I liked what they were saying about cooperating and working together and Discovery helping out. Like that kind of broad sense of it, I enjoyed. I thought that was good, but yeah, not every episode's gonna bat 1,000, which most of the episodes this season have been doing. So the bar is pretty high. but I enjoyed it. I thought it was good. The character moments, as usual, are the parts that I absolutely love. So I think my rating for this episode is Saru on the bridge saying, "Hit it," like Tilly wants him to. It's a little awkward, but it'll get the job done, I guess. It's a bit of a tortured rating, but I got there in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man. Yeah, so I guess thank you all so much for joining us. Next week we have Terra Firma Part 1. So another Latin episode. And as a few people have talked about, Terran is what they refer to as humans from the Mirror Universe. So a little bit of a double play on words there, maybe. I don't know. I feel like there's a Giorgio focus, so we'll see. But of course,
well, I don't. Yeah, well, if you get the next week on Star Trek Discovery, you will know that Giorgio is a part of it. So,
I had
not a spoiler.
idea.
Not a spoiler.
I also knew that.
Yeah, it's in the next time on next week thing,
which we don't get in Canada, so I have to go to special measures to actually see that. But I saw it.
That's good. That's good. I won't tell if you won't. Nobody in the chat's going to tell. It's fine.
Well, yeah, thank you all so much for watching. Brandy, where can people follow you for all the cool stuff that you do?
Too many places. The easiest thing, because honestly, I get tired of running down the list. I do too many things, you guys. So just follow me on Twitter at Brandywine12. Brandy's with an I, 12 is a number. And I will post about the things that I'm doing. I do other Star Trek podcasts. I do another live show on Saturdays called Infinite Trek. When Aaron isn't throwing up his guts, I'm glad to see you in the chat, buddy. Some stuff I do with my husband, Dark Corner Podcast and Headcanon. You can find those at darkcornerpodcast.com. My other stuff you can find at holosweetmedia.com. And that's the things. Those things. What about you, Dan?
Well, I do Positively Trek, a podcast with Bruce Gibson. We release 2 episodes a week when there's new Star Trek on, and every other week a 3rd episode, which is a book club episode. You can find that wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe. We think it's a lot of fun. We think you'll enjoy it. Follow me on Twitter at Kertrats, that's Kertrats, and follow Positively Trek on Twitter at Positively Trek. We just passed 400 followers, so not a ton, but it's creeping up there. So any of you who haven't followed that yet, go follow. I promise I won't tweet a million things. We're pretty sedate. It's fine. We won't blow up your timeline or anything like that. And of course, on this channel, episodes about Star Trek and The Mandalorian and all kinds of other stuff. So be sure to subscribe to Kertrats Productions down there somewhere if you haven't yet. So really appreciate that. Thank you all so much. And until next week, everybody take care of each other and take care of yourselves and call people what they want to be called, for crying out loud.
Please. It's just
preaching to the choir here. I know you guys are awesome. So
yes.